Richard Pollett was an extraordinary musician. He had performed with orchestras across the world, including the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, and the Orchestra of Lugano in Switzerland. He was the Australian Youth Performer Awards Strings Final winner in 2010, all by the age of 25. Tragically, this talented young life was cut short 10 years ago while riding his bicycle on Moggill Road in Kenmore. This video looks at how this happened and what's changed since.
So it was about lunchtime on Tuesday the 27th of September 2011 and Richard was riding between Kenmore Village and Kenmore Tavern along Moggill Road here. It was a fine day, a bit like this, good visibility, perfectly safe time to ride. He was being followed by a cement truck who attempted an overtake without changing lanes. He was dragged underneath and killed instantly.
After an investigation, the driver was charged with dangerous driving causing death. However, he was found not guilty at his trial in May 2013. The defence argued the truck driver was boxed in by cars in the right lane and had another car tailgating him, that he was pressured to overtake, and he was under the honest and reasonable belief there was enough room on the road to safely overtake Richard. Horrifically, that was not the case.
At the time of the crash, the Queensland road rules didn't specify what a safe passing distance was. It just required drivers to leave a safe distance while overtaking a cyclist. The cycling community was infuriated. Not that a conviction would have changed what happened, it just seemed that the cost of a human life was considered expendable, just an inevitability as part of our road system.
That's not to say there have been no consequences for the driver. They live with this trauma for the rest of their life, and at the time of the trial expressed genuine remorse. Sending him to jail would not have achieved anything. The cycling community rallied for change. A memorial ride with dozens of cyclists, organised by Brisbane CBD Bug, rode from Kenmore to the CBD. Moggill MP at the time, Bruce Flegg, assisted advocacy group Safe Cycling Australia launch a petition calling for introduction of minimum safe passing distance laws, which garnered thousands of signatures. The petition led to a Queensland Parliamentary Inquiry later in 2013, at which the circumstances of Richard's crash were thoroughly examined. Evidence presented in the trial suggested that the maximum distance between the inside edge of the truck and the curb at the time Richard was overtaken was a mere 90 centimetres. My bicycle's handlebars are 70 centimetres wide. That the driver held the honest and reasonable belief that that was enough space is shocking enough, but that the jury accepted this is frightening. Alan Davies, a writer for Crikey, suggested that the jury's attitude might relate to a general perception that cyclists are mere obstacles rather than people going from A to B. The underlying issue is most motorists don't view cyclists as legitimate road users. The slower speed and greater vulnerability of riders isn't acknowledged, accepted, or duly allowed for by drivers, Davies wrote. I suspect the jury's decision reflects that widespread perception. But the purpose of this video is not to re-prosecute the case, but to reflect on what's happened in the 10 years since Richard's death. In November 2013, the Parliamentary Inquiry handed down its report with 68 recommendations. The detail in response to that report is a whole other video in itself, but the key recommendation 8 was for the Queensland Government to amend Road Rule 144 to introduce a minimum safe passing distance when overtaking a cyclist of 1 metre at speed limits up to 60 km per hour, and 1.5 metres at speed limits above 60 km per hour. The government accepted this recommendation and agreed to a trial implementation of the law, and it came into effect on the 7th of April 2014 for a 2-year trial. It was accompanied by an awareness campaign, Stay Wider of the Rider, and after a successful trial, the law became permanent in April 2016. Recommendations 46 and 47 were to liaise with local government and cycling stakeholders to identify inadequate and necessary cycle routes and prioritise their development. The Principal Cycle Network Plan. This was supported and actioned, and Moggill Road is part of that plan. So what happened with Moggill Road as a result of this inquiry and Richard's crash? Well, not much.
For me, it was particularly personal. I used to live on Seedley Road. In fact, my old family home was where I am now. It's now 4 different houses. But I used to ride from here to Kenmore High, and I'd often go along Moggill Road. So I'd ride down there on the road itself, or sometimes the footpath. I can remember one time when I was 14 and I was riding back, and a city council bus passed me so closely that I thought it was going to clip my handlebars. Now what's changed since then? It's a lot busier, there's a lot more traffic, and nothing really has changed in the road environment.
I had only started cycling as an adult again just before Richard's crash. In fact, it was my second week riding to work. Moments after the crash, my wife drove past, seeing the aftermath. Logically, she knew it wasn't me, I was at work, but the wave of fear was there. She asked me, "Is riding to work really safe?" And my answer to that, it should be.
And that's why I do what I do. It shouldn't just be safe to ride a bike. It should be fun, it should be convenient, it should be easy and enjoyable. You shouldn't be feeling like you're taking your life in your hands. And those who love you shouldn't be worried about whether you're going to come home or not.
Traffic delays of major proportions in Brisbane this morning following a serious collision between a cyclist and a P-plate driver in the city's west. The crash occurred on Moggill Road at Chapel Hill, where one lane remains closed.
That February morning in 2017, I heard news that made me feel instantly sick. Another cyclist had been hit riding on Moggill Road, just a few metres further along from Richard Pollett. Tragically, a 50-year-old father of one, Richard Burden, on his way to join his mates for their usual Friday morning ride, was gone. The young driver was a P-plater in a small car. Once again, the driver was charged with dangerous driving causing death, but the jury took just 3 hours to decide that he was not guilty. It was just another bad decision with fatal consequences. The legal threshold of proving dangerous driving is just too high. Making the wrong decision that causes a fatality is not, in the eyes of the law, dangerous driving. The state government has now introduced a new careless driving causing death law, which maybe will lead to better justice for vulnerable road user victims in future. The cycling community, however, realised that the law simply wasn't going to protect us. Drivers were simply going to keep making mistakes, and if cyclists are involved, we know who comes off second best. The only solution to more tragedies like these was better infrastructure along Moggill Road.
Space for Cycling lobbied for immediate action. Nearly 6 years after Richard Pollett's death, the only change were these cynical yellow bike symbols and a watch for cyclists sign.
Transport and Main Roads Minister Mark Bailey funded a planning study in 2018 to investigate solutions on and parallel to Moggill Road to provide safer options. I participated in that, along with Brisbane City Council and Bicycle Queensland. But the outcome is a report sitting in a folder on some file system somewhere, and nothing's been done.
Now in the 10th year since Richard Pollett's death, a business case for providing solutions on Moggill Road itself is underway. What will the outcome be? Who knows? But I'm trying to be positive.
But whatever the recommendations of that business case, they can only be delivered if there is an increase in investment in active transport infrastructure. Currently, the state government spends about $60 million a year on cycling infrastructure, most of which is on large-scale projects like the V1 Veloway and North Brisbane Bikeway, which are fantastic. The bulk of state-delivered bikeway projects come in conjunction with road widenings, or upgrades as they call them. There's no sign of any such road projects coming to this part of Brisbane. Well, except some money to redesign the Moggill Road roundabout, which was just terrible. Brisbane City Council is spending big bucks on cycling bridges across the Brisbane River in the inner city, and they're fantastic. But again, remaining funding for other projects is very limited. Waiting for spending on big road projects or big shiny marquee projects isn't good enough. We need to prioritise cycling and walking investment, and that means putting more dollars where the strategies and policies are. Better bike lanes doesn't have to be flashy and expensive. It can be as simple as converting street parking to a protected bike lane, as we've seen in the CBD with CityLink. Friends and family of both men lost to Moggill Road have said they don't want this to be about cars versus bikes, and neither do I. There is no war on cars or war on bikes. That's clickbait rhetoric. It's just people who want to get from A to B safely by whatever way they choose. and cycling is one way we really have to encourage, but we have to make it physically safe to do so.
Since Richard's crash on the 27th of September 2011, we've had 5 Prime Ministers, 3 Premiers, 2 Lord Mayors, and all that's changed on Moggill Road is some faded yellow bike symbols and a ghost bike. I hope when I ride through here in 10 years' time, there's going to be a safe cycle route.